Today on Inquirer.
Our incoming Vice President has agreed to take the brief of Department of Education.
Presidential frontrunner Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. announced Wednesday that leading vice presidential candidate Inday Sara Duterte Carpio will serve as the Secretary of the Department of Education.
Tinanong ko sa kanya kung kaya niya yung trabaho dahil mahirap ang trabaho ng Secretary of Education. Pero nag-agree naman siya at palagay ko kasama na diyan dahil she is a mother and she wants to make sure that her children are well trained and well educated.
Earlier, the camp of Marcos Jr. declared victory in the 2022 presidential elections. In a statement, Marcos Jr. spokesperson Attorney Vic Rodriguez said, with 98% of the votes counted and with an unassailable lead of over 16 million votes, the Filipino people have spoken decisively. He added that this is a victory for all Filipinos and for democracy, reiterating Marcos Jr.'s promise to be a president for all Filipinos. Rodriguez also shared Marcos Jr.'s message to the world. He says, "Judge me not by my ancestors, but by my actions." Marcos Jr. on Wednesday also visited the tomb of his late father and namesake at the Libingan ng mga Bayani in Taguig City. In one of the photos posted on his Facebook page, Marcos appeared to be in tears as he stood in front of his father's tomb. Marcos Jr. is still leading the partial and unofficial count for president with over 31 million votes. Vice President Leni Robredo was a far second with just over 14.8 million votes, followed by Senator Manny Pacquiao at 3.6 million. A Comelec official says allegations of cheating will be hard to prove, with claims of a supposedly consistent 47% ratio between votes for the top two presidential bets as raised by netizens online.
Hirap i-prove yan pag sinabi mong may cheating with regards to that percentage. Unang-una, yung ating system natin dumaan yan sa ating certification. So meron tayong local source code review. How can you insert such percentage na ipanalo mo yung kandidato mo or matalo yung kandidato mo?
This after Casqueo was asked regarding online posts raising concern over an alleged consistency in the margin of votes between leading presidential candidate former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and his rival Vice President Leni Robredo in the first hours of vote transmission to the Comelec transparency server. While Casqueo found no irregularities with the 47% ratio claims, he said Comelec can make a check.
Wala po tayong sinasabi na nagkaroon ng dayaan dito. If you still insist, we can still check the election returns. Meron naman tayong election returns. We can do our own quick count and then we can demand or ask for the voters' VVPAT, yung voters' receipt. Transmit din kasi yan sa ating transparency server.
Meanwhile, for poll watchdog National Citizens Movement for Free Elections and independent analytics group Octa Research do not see any anomaly in the 68:32 ratio magic allegation. The 68:32 ratio magic, a claim that for every vote update, a consistent pattern of 68% of the votes goes to Marcos Jr., while 32% goes to Vice President Leni Robredo, has been making rounds on social media. NAMFIL says that they have not seen any irregularities that would lead to the said 68:32 ratio magic and that they have verified and validated the election results received via the transparency server via a photo of the election returns. In a separate message, Octa Research fellow Guido David said the ratio observed is not proof of any anomaly and that it can be explained if the election returns are transmitted uniformly from all over the country. He added that geographic differences can be observed in the Comelec unofficial counts and are consistent with polling data. Citizens Armed Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting earlier said that there are no irregularities that would support the 68:32 magic allegation. Meanwhile, Marcos Camp said in an interview with CNN Philippines that critics should just respect the decision of the majority of the Filipino votes. face masks may no longer be needed if the number of COVID-19 cases continue to drop to less than 200, an infectious disease expert said Wednesday.
Sa tingin ko, medyo mahaba-haba pa yan. Let's see, no? In the next 2 to 3 months, no? Kung talagang tuloy-tuloy na ang pagbaba ng kaso, like less than 200, most likely baka hindi na natin kailangan ang face mask.
The Department of Health earlier said the use of face masks may no longer be needed by the end of the year if COVID-19 becomes endemic. President Rodrigo Duterte meanwhile said the mask mandate will be enforced until the end of his term in June. Celebrity makeup artist and stylist Felix Mariano Fausto Jr., also known as Fanny Serrano, passed away at 72 years old, the Designers Circle Philippines confirmed. Aside from being a beauty and fashion figure, Serrano also entered the showbiz industry as an actor and appeared in some films. And that's the latest news today. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. I'm Daphne Galvez.